Hello, everyone. It's TeamRCIA. I'm Diana.
I'm Nick.
And we're coming to you live here from Facebook from the intergalactic headquarters of the TeamRCIA.com endeavor, which is in Northern California, San Jose.
It is.
And goodness, it's been such a busy week.
It's been a busy 2020.
Yes, that's all I have to say.
Well, I don't know about the rest of the world, but we have been fighting zombies. So, and also wildfires.
Yes.
And viruses.
Yeah. So
anyway, because 2020 is 2020, we just continuously get questions about how to do this ministry in the midst of everything, and especially if we're all kind of sheltering in place, is it even possible to do a ministry of accompaniment that requires that we accompany people, actually accompany them on a journey of faith? What are some ways that we can actually continue our ministry and help people grow in faith when we can't even really get together with them?
And so, as Nick said, we get a lot of emails and messages and questions saying exactly that. Can you give us some ideas on how to do RCIA when we can't even gather together? And that's a good and valid question, but it also reveals kind of a paradigm that many of us, most of us, probably still operate under. And that's the paradigm that RCIA and church in general only happens in a room or at a building at a specific time during the week. And I call that RCIA in a box, where we have boxed up RCIA into Wednesday, 7:30 p.m. at the parish hall, and that's when RCIA happens, the Rite of Christian Initiation of Adults. And if that's our paradigm of the catechumenate, then yes, the question becomes really challenging. How do we do RCIA in a box when we can't get to our box?
Or a similar paradigm is RCIA in the classroom.
Yeah.
And we have this with actual classrooms. Our children, our grandchildren can't go, or it depends on where you are, can't physically go to a classroom, or they go every other day and half of the school comes the other days or something, and there's classes at home, and we try to translate RCIA into that kind of thing, because we're used to having people come to Wednesday at 7:30 for the class, and now we want to try to do those classes on Zoom, and we're finding out that the seekers have no interest really in sitting in front of a computer and watching a PowerPoint slide. I don't think they really have much interest in coming to the parish classroom on Wednesday at 7:30 and watching PowerPoint slides either, or videos, or whatever you're doing. But they do get some social interaction when they show up at the building, so I think they like that. But when that's taken away, I don't think there's much that the classroom model has much to offer.
The idea here is that we have these restrictions. Some of them are real restrictions that we simply have to figure our way around. And then there are other restrictions that we've imposed on ourselves that make ministry a lot more difficult than it needs to be.
Yeah.
And it actually distorts the meaning of what we're trying to do. And so if we start to think of RCIA outside of that Wednesday RCIA 7:30 box, or RCIA as outside of a classroom kind of mentality, and more of what the Rite of Christian Initiation of Adults actually says it is an apprenticeship, a training in the Christian way of life, then all we have to do is look at where are Christians doing the Christian way of life.
Yeah.
Wherever that is, not just at your parish, not just in your gathering spaces, but where are Christians doing the Christian mission? And when we start looking at that, then we see so many opportunities of how to accompany our seekers in that training of the Christian way of life.
I actually saw 50 opportunities.
I
stopped at 50. You could probably think of 50 more and 50 more and 50 more, because just about everything we're doing as Christians is a proclamation of the gospel.
So just our common disclaimer, which is always very good to remind ourselves, the RCIA is not a catechetical tool. It is a ritual process, and there's an actual official ritual text that goes with that ritual process. So you want to make sure, if you're doing RCI ministry, that you have the rite of Christian initiation of adults, the ritual text itself. And for today's topic, the primary paragraph number that we're looking at is paragraph 75. You want to say what 75
Well, paragraph
is?
75 is the RCI says in paragraph 75 that this formation that we're doing is a training in the Christian life. It's an apprenticeship process. So it's hands-on, actual living as a Christian. That's how folks learn how to do it. So it's not sitting down and learning doctrines. It's the new directory for catechesis calls it embodying doctrines. So when we go out and we live as Christians, we're embodying the teaching of the church. And by embodying that teaching, by getting our hands dirty, by rubbing shoulders, now metaphorically, but in 6 or 8 months, we hope in a real way, we're actually rubbing shoulders with people, that you're learning what it is to be a Christian. So paragraph 75 has 4 broad categories in which we apprentice or accompany the seekers on the path of Christian life, learning to be a Christian. The first broad category is word and tradition. So by living out the word, by living as traditional, capital T, traditional Catholics, and having the seekers live along with us, work along with us in word and tradition, they learn the fundamentals, the teaching of the faith.
Mm-hmm. And for many of us in that paradigm, that kind of normal paradigm of RCIA in a box, this is primarily what we imagine RCIA to focus on, the handing on of the precepts and dogmas of the church. And that's exactly what paragraph 75.1 says, that we have to provide a catechesis that gives the catechumens not only an appropriate acquaintance with dogmas and precepts, but also, here's the thing that we often miss in our RCIA in a box mentality, but it also needs to provide them a profound sense of the mystery of salvation in which they desire to participate. That profound sense of mystery is often not specifically found in your PowerPoint, no matter how well prepared it is. That mystery is encountered in the experience of your catechumen encountering Christ in the Christian community.
And that's the next big category in paragraph 75 is the Christian community. So we're going to apprentice folks in the way of faith by helping them live in Christian community. Now, what we have rediscovered in the pandemic or re-emphasized in the pandemic is the first place of Christian community is in the Christian home, the domestic church. And we've neglected that, I think. And the pandemic has caused us across, not just in catechumenate ministry, but in all of our ministries, to re-emphasize and re-energize our ministry within the domestic church and to the domestic church. But also the parish community, the diocesan community, and the universal church, the worldwide community, all of those are ways in which we apprentice the seekers in how to live in Christian community. Within that, living in Christian community, they have to learn how to be people of sacrifice, how to live for the sake of the other, and always putting the other person first, which I think in the United States, maybe in Canada, maybe in Australia, but certainly in the United States, in our time right now, that concept of putting the other person first is really under threat and under stress. And we as Catholics, as Christians, we have to be the models of how we do that, how we sacrifice ourselves for the sake of the other.
Yeah, and so if you take a look at paragraph 75.2, it's a pretty long paragraph. Everything that it talks about there is about that self-sacrifice, that learning how to live in a community of strangers, because the Christian community is not homogeneous. It is meant to be a diverse body of people, of members who have different ideas, different ways of seeing the world, different languages, different ways of life. And, even with all of those differences, because of those differences, we are called to love one another, even if it is difficult for us. And so it says here that since transition brings with it a progressive change of outlook and conduct, it should become manifest by means of social consequences. And it should develop gradually. And so the new way of life that catechumens are learning will have a consequence. It may mean that they might have to break some relationships with people that aren't necessarily helping them in that way of life. It might mean conflict. And so how are we going to help train them in that understanding of community, where we sacrifice our own preferences for the sake of the other, and we stand up for beliefs that are sometimes countercultural?
And again, the question that on everybody's mind is, how do we do these things in pandemic? And we're going to get to that, but let's just name the other two broad categories. The first that we already named is word and tradition. The second broad category is Christian community. And the third broad category is prayer and worship. So that's really difficult now because we can't get together for worship. So we're doing online and streamed worship, and those are fine second bests, but they are second best. Mm-hmm. And so we're longing for the day when we can get together again and truly worship in the way the church envisions. But until then, we're going to be inviting the catechumens and the candidates and the seekers to join us in our online worship, and we're especially going to resource the domestic churches, including churches that have seekers, to do actual liturgical prayer in their homes, so that they do have actual worship, actual small s sacramental worship going on in their homes.
So if you turn to paragraph 75.3, where it focuses on that life of worship, it's kind of interesting because the first several sentences there aren't about what the catechumens do. It's about what the church does for them. And so it says, the church, like a mother, helps the catechumens on their journey by means of suitable liturgical rites, which purify the catechumens little by little and strengthen them with God's blessings. And so even if the catechumens can't join in prayer with the broader church, each of us as the members of the faithful can pray for our catechumens and remember them in our own prayer. And so we have to think of how are we praying in all ways, not just what we try to do at the parish church itself.
So then the final category, the fourth big category, is witness and service, or evangelization, or going out, reaching out to those on the peripheries. We call it, just shorthand, we call it witness. And that's the fourth in the list of those four in paragraph 75. It's the one I want to start with when we talk about the practical aspects of how we do this in pandemic. But the overall principle is the same, whether we're in pandemic or not in pandemic, is that everything in our lives, every waking moment should be a proclamation of the gospel, should be an announcement of the good news. That is, as Pope Francis says it, the news that Jesus Christ loves you, he came to save you, and he's standing by your side every day to free you and heal you. And so everything we do and everything that the seekers do should somehow make that announcement in every encounter that they have. Mm-hmm. Now, those encounters have shifted now that most of our encounters outside of our families are online. We have some encounters where we go to the store and we have to be socially distanced, and we do some outdoor activities, but we're not nearly as social as we used to be during this pandemic. So let's look at some practical ways.
Can I say one thing about
Sure.
that? So paragraph 75.4, this one often challenges our normal paradigm as well, in terms of what we think RCIA is about. So if we imagine that RCIA is about handing on the traditions and making sure that the catechumens are going to church and all of that, but we wait until after they're baptized to encourage them to participate in the community, to encourage them to go out and witness their faith, then we've waited too long, because part of their training is that ability to evangelize even before they are baptized. So they are called to, by their words and their actions, profess their faith and give witness to Christ in their lives with the Christian community. And so it reminds us that we need to be doing that long before they're baptized.
So just some practical ideas. I'm not going to go through all 50. If you want to see all 50 ideas, go to TeamRCIA.com, and Diana will put the link in the comments here. But, you know, with Zoom technology or video technology now, it's real easy. Even we're on Facebook. You can do this on Facebook. It's really easy to set up like a weekly evening in which you host a conversation around what Catholics think about blank. Mm-hmm. And then each week fill in the blank with something that's a question one of the catechumens had, or something that's going on in your life, or something that's going on in the news, or just common Catholic questions you've heard over your ministry. So just a few of them, you know, it could be what Catholics think about the Bible, what Catholics think about climate change, what Catholics think about loneliness, you know. So just fill in the blank with something that's going on right now that you want to talk about, or you could get somebody from your team or parish staff to talk about. But I wouldn't have it like a lecture. I wouldn't go through here's what the catechism says about everything. Remember, this is sort of outreach to maybe folks who don't know us very well. So it's really just a conversation, how you would talk to somebody at a coffee shop about what Catholics think about the pandemic. You know?
Mm-hmm. And I mean, so a couple of things there with all of these new technologies that we're now becoming a lot more familiar with. There are options where people don't have to log in online. They can still use the same technology and just call on the phone. And so make sure you know that Zoom and GoToWebinar and so many other things have a call-in phone option. There's still that old school way of using the phone to actually make a phone call that allows people to participate as well. And then second with that, there are, with everyone sheltering in place, so many resources are available out there that can help us enter into these discussions. So especially with catechumens who are further along in their formation, or with baptized Catholics who are further along in their formation, places like Georgetown University, Catholic Theological Union have almost weekly free webinars that talk about some particular aspect of the Catholic faith. And so we can use that as a springboard for discussion.
So just a couple real quick, couple other outreach ideas. You could have people from your RCIA team or parish staff or parishioners, you can have them record like 1-minute testimonial videos. And there's a link on the website about how you would do that. If folks are shy and they don't want to do a video, then have them write out a testimony. And the testimony is really, you know, what's Jesus done in my life? Either, you know, how did I get here? How did, you know, if I was baptized as an adult, maybe, how did that happen? Or what's going on like right now in the last week, in the last month, how has the Holy Spirit touched my heart? So just 1-minute testimonials that could live on your website. So, you know, somebody browsing would come across that. Another idea is to ask parishioners, and you could ask your seekers to do this too, to bake breads and cakes and goodies and stuff. Everybody's baking now. And then within your local health guidelines, work with your sponsors and your catechumens and candidates to bring those baked goods to people in your neighborhood who are homebound, or, you know, are particularly isolated, or in hospitals or nursing homes. Again, you want to make sure you're doing social distancing and all that, but reach out with some goodies, with some food to people in your community.
Reach out through handwritten notes. And
Yep.
so have your sponsors and catechumens and candidates write notes to parishioners who might be feeling a little lonely, or just help them reach out in the old school ways, the new ways, whatever way, so that they can witness their faith to others.
You want to list a couple ideas from Word and Tradition?
No, why don't you go ahead?
Okay. One thing to help with Word and Tradition, this is just, I think almost every parish is having an online Bible study now, and you could invite your catechumens and candidates to do that, or you could start one with them. There's a link on the website to Little Rock Scripture Studies, which is an excellent resource for doing online Bible study. I also think that in this time, this would be a good time to look at some of the writings of Pope Francis, especially in his two of his documents. He's written a lot. But if you go, again, links on the website, or you can Google Joy of the Gospel and also Rejoice and Be Glad. Mm-hmm. Joy of the Gospel is the one that Pope Francis wrote basically on what our mission is as Catholics. And it's a long document, so you might want to have just little chunks of it that you read over a few weeks together. And the other one, Rejoice and Be Glad, is the one he wrote about how we're all called to holiness, which is just a beautiful, beautiful mm-hmm. letter. And you might start with that because it's a little simpler, and it's about how, you don't have to be a canonized saint to be considered holy. If you're just trying your best to live the Christian life, that's holiness.
And it's very accessible. So even your beginning catechumens might be able to read parts of it and really just get excited by it. Plus, November 1st is coming up, All Saints Day, where we remember the saints and the Beatitudes and all of that great stuff. Pope Francis in that document, Rejoice and Be Glad, Gaudete et Exultate, talks about the Beatitudes and the saints and how those two elements of our faith really are kind of the heart of our Christian faith.
And a couple more fun things under Word and Tradition. You could host a Catholic trivia night online. And again, if you Google, and there's a link on the website, there's all kinds of Catholic trivia questions you can use. And another one is to host a biblical scavenger hunt where you're looking for things in the Bible, and you could get kids involved in that and make it a big family thing. Under community, how we would do this all under community. Netflix has a service where you can host a Netflix watch party. So you contact a bunch of people. Everybody has to have a Netflix account to do this, but you get a bunch of people who have a Netflix account together, and you all choose a movie, and then you watch it together, and there's a chat function that everybody can kind of comment on the movie as it's going on. And then I listed several movies that might be good for family night and seekers and catechumens and so on for everybody to get together to watch. Another thing, everybody's doing online happy hours and online coffees now, so schedule some of those with your seekers and do them in smaller groups. I think if you do it with 3-4 people instead of all 30 people that are on the team and the staff and the 30 people gets to be a lot. But if you do it in small groups, and if you Google, you can find resources to help you schedule them. But if your group is small enough, you could probably just do it yourself and say, just invite people to come, on Thursday at 10 a.m. for coffee, or Friday at 5 p.m. for happy hour, and just have a conversation, not catechesis, not even religious. Just talk about how your day went, how the week went.
With the liturgical year coming to a close and a new liturgical year almost getting started, this is a great time to look at your calendar, your liturgical calendar, especially your domestic church calendar, and help catechumens and candidates build their own liturgical calendar so that they are praying with the communion of saints. And especially their name days are great opportunities to have a happy hour and to celebrate with them online. So today is the feast of the Archangels, Michael, Gabriel, Raphael. So all of you Michaels and Michaelas and Michelles and Gabes and Gabrielas and Raphas and all of them. Today's your name day, and so we celebrate you. This would be a wonderful time to connect with your catechumens who share those names.
And one way to celebrate, I already talked about cooking breads and stuff. Because of the pandemic, I've been cooking a lot more, and I like to try to pretend I'm a little artistic with my cooking. So one thing you could do is get all of your catechumens and candidates and their families and your sponsors, everybody in your RCIA team, everybody commit that you're all going to make a nice dinner, a fancy dinner on Sunday nights, or whatever night you want. But Sunday is the Lord's Day, so Sunday nights. And then on right before you eat the dinner, take a picture of it. And everybody either post it on, a Facebook group, or email it to everybody, or on the parish website. But, as a way to build community, if we can't all eat together, at least we can share our pictures of what we're making.
Yeah.
And then finally, prayer and worship, things we can do in prayer and worship. We're actually getting pretty good at this in lots of our parishes. So lots of parishes have online rosaries, online adoration, certainly online mass. One thing I haven't seen, but what you could do is do an online Lectio Divina where you're prayerfully praying the readings for Sunday or the readings of the day. And you could teach your catechumens how to do that style of prayer. If you don't know how to do that style of prayer, there's a link on the website, or you can Google it. Celebrate name days, as Diana said, with some kind of blessing or prayer for that day. Or you could do like a monthly celebration of name days. So everybody, all of your catechumens and candidates who have a saint day in that month, then you could have like a prayer celebration in the middle of the month or the end of the month to celebrate everybody who has a saint name in September, for example.
This Sunday, is it this Sunday? This Sunday, Saint Francis Day, October 4, blessing of your animals.
Yeah.
So post pictures of all of your furry friends from your catechumens and candidates.
You should put in the link.
I will. I'll put that in there.
Diana has a blessing of animals, so we'll put that in the comments for you in a little bit.
So all of these amazing traditions that we hand on to our catechumens and candidates that aren't, you don't have to have a classroom to do that. You actually just have to have a Christian way of life to do that. And so think outside of the box with all of these ideas.
It took me, I don't even think it took me 30 minutes to come up with all these ideas. And I did some Googling and I thought up stuff on my own and stuff I just, sort of knew was happening. And I just came up with a list. And I promise if you start with my list of 50 and you try to think up, say, 10 more or 20 more, it won't take you long at all to think them up, and they'll be more customized to your community. That, as Diana has said many times, it really just takes us like putting aside the paradigm that we live in and say, all right, if I didn't have any of that, what could I do with what I do have, with the technology that we have, with the talent that we have, with stuff that's available on the internet? What could we do to teach catechumens and candidates how to live as people of the word and tradition, how to live in Christian community, how to be people of prayer and worship, and mostly how to witness their faith and serve others?
So when we are able to get back together again, let's not go back into the box.
Yeah.
Let's take what we've learned from this challenge of the pandemic, to be creative, to really go back to what the right is asking us to do. Not do RCIA class, but to accompany seekers in the Christian way of life. Let's take all of that back into our parishes when we're able to gather, so that not just our parish life, but our home life, our work life, our social life online and in real life is imbued with the Christian way of life.
Okay. All right, well, go check out all the 50 ideas and try some of them, and send us an email and let us know how it went, or put some comments in the Facebook page here and tell us how any of your ideas worked.
And we'll see you at the next Facebook Live.
Oh, and community chat. We didn't talk about community
chat.
Tomorrow.
Oh my God, no, it's not tomorrow.
No,
God,
next week.
Please, not tomorrow.
Next week.
Next Wednesday. Oh my gosh, yes, because so Nick and I, we've been doing all of these workshops, and one of the key things that we present in the workshop is a visualization of the ritual process of the RCIA. Because a lot of times we, as RCIA ministers, start with the catechetical element of RCIA, but we forget that it's first and foremost a ritual process that is infused with a catechetical lens, and with Pope Francis's new document, the Directory for Catechesis, we understand that lens is always about evangelization. And so next Wednesday, not tomorrow, but a week from tomorrow, we'll be looking at that ritual process and how the catechetical field is working within that ritual path. It'll be fun. We'll have images and avatars and pictures.
All right, everyone. Well, God bless you and all the great work you're doing. And thanks for putting up with this pandemic, this virus. I know we don't have a choice, but you're doing it with grace and style. And we're very grateful for all your work.
You are. You are all courageous and creative and amazing people. So keep doing the wonderful work that you're doing. We're praying for you.
All right. Take care, everyone.
Thanks.
God bless.
Bye.